Hey, everybody, welcome back to Chipstock Investor. Today, we're going to be talking about Pure Storage. And Pure Storage was one of my top picks this year. We did a mid year update. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check that out. That video was in July, almost 3 months ago now. And we need to do an update on what we're expecting from Pure Storage for the rest of the year.
Yeah, stock has come down 40% plus since that July update. If you missed it, check it out. Casey pretty clearly explained why she expected the stock to come off of those peak prices a couple of months ago. But we'll get you up to speed with the expectation at this point because this is one of our top memory stocks or storage stocks in the chip stock investor portfolio. Seems like a good segue after we talked about Micron and the IDMs yesterday. So we'll get to it.
This episode is sponsored by public.com. Heads up, everybody, time may be running out to lock in a 6.9% yield at public.com.
Right now, bond yields are at their highest levels since 2009, and you can take advantage with a bond account. But here's the thing. The Fed has signaled potential rate cuts in September.
And there probably will be more to come this year and into 2025. The good news is with a bond account, you can potentially lock in that 6.9% yield until 2028.
And then when the Fed does lower interest rates, your yield actually remains the same. It's locked in. But you must act fast to take advantage of some of those highest bond yields in years.
Discover how you can lock in a 6.9% yield until 2028. The new bond account only at public.com. Check it out now at public.com/CSI.
Casey, let me tee this up for you. Tell the folks at home what Pure Storage does.
As a reminder, let's talk about what the three main parts of a computing system are. Computing is the first part. That's the chips that do all the number crunching, the logic of the computer system, Intel, NVIDIA, and the like. Networking is the management and movement of the information between different parts of the network, like between logic chips, from data storage to those chips, or into it and out of the data center. But what we're going to focus on today is number three, storage. That's where the information, where the data is stored either in queue, waiting for compute processing, or in long-term storage to be used later on command. Nick, tell us where Pure Storage fits in to the semiconductor industry.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, this is our updated semi-industry flowchart. We debuted this as part of our 100,000 YouTube subscriber celebration video. That was yesterday on the Micron/Lam research video. Here it is again, though, but this time we're highlighting tech equipment and devices and enterprise software. So Pure Storage develops these storage servers for enterprise data centers. And they also have a tightly integrated enterprise software stack that goes along with that. We'll cover what this is in just a moment. This is different from the integrated device manufacturers or the IDMs like Micron that actually manufacture the memory chips. So what Pure Storage is doing is after those chips are made, they're purchasing them and then assembling them into a storage server that they then go on to sell to large companies.
Who are the competitors for Pure Storage? Well, that includes Dell EMC, HP Enterprise, Hitachi Vantara, IBM NetApp, and even Supermicro.
Yeah, it's a pretty crowded field in this part of the market. There are lots of OEMs and ODMs out there, but Pure Storage recognized as one of the leaders, if not the leader. And in particular, that's because Pure Storage is helping pioneer what's called all flash enterprise storage. What is all flash storage, you might ask? Well, Casey, this is what the current enterprise storage systems are made up of right now.
Hard disk drives are what we could call the gold standard for data storage at this time. You can see that those hard disk drives are made up of a magnetic platter and the data is written on that.
These things have been around for decades. And the reason why they're still the gold standard, even though they're mechanical in nature, these things rotate around and they can be very slow. But ultimately, what this boils down to is cost or performance. And especially when you're talking about large enterprises that maybe have many, many years worth of data sitting around in an on-premises storage system or in a private data center storage system, and even the hyperscalers. Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, so on and so forth, they also still rely very heavily on these things. And again, it boils back down to cost per performance because HDDs have been around for many years, for decades. They're just cheap. Why wouldn't you want to save the money on storage so that you can buy some really sexy NVIDIA AI and computing accelerators?
Okay, now you're looking at a flash memory. Pure Storage takes flash memory and assembles it to be used for data center servers, perhaps, or any kind of storage system. But Micron is the provider of some of these flash memory chips. DRAM, that's used for short term memory like GPU systems, versus NAND flash for long term storage.
And so this is Pure Storage's specialty, this long-term NAND flash storage. And the benefit of these is there's no moving parts. It's an actual chip. It's not a rotating platter using magnetic read-write capabilities. And so you get a big increase in performance and also a reduction in power consumption because there's no mechanical parts that are moving around.
It's also a bit more durable, right?
It's also a bit more durable. The drawback is it's newer technology, and so therefore it's more expensive. Because we are talking about chips, though, semiconductors, this happens with all types of chips. All semiconductor technology over time simultaneously improves and usually comes down in cost, at least on a per performance basis. And that's exactly what has been happening with NAND flash over the years. It's increasingly got more dense. You can store more data on increasingly smaller chips, and the cost per bit has therefore come down over time. Micron now working on 3D NAND. You oftentimes hear about 3D DRAM and HBM memory that's used in some of these really advanced AI accelerators from NVIDIA and AMD. Something not too dissimilar happening with NAND flash as well. 3D stacked chips that greatly increase the amount of data that you can store in these little memory devices.
Here's some images of Pure Storage's flash array memory systems. As we reach a point where the economics of flash storage becomes more reasonable, we certainly can see the possibility of a shift to this becoming the gold standard and hard disk drives phasing out.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time. Again, these things are well entrenched. Hard disk drives have been around for decades, but it's just economics. And as those hard disk drives wear out, like all mechanical parts do, there's going to be increasing incentive to replace them with all flash, higher performance, lower energy usage, all flash. Now, Kasey, we talk a lot about business models that combine hardware and software. And given enough time, it's these types of businesses that have a pretty good shot of developing some sort of long-term competitive advantage. What does Pure Storage have to offer in that department?
On the left side of this chart, you can see the hardware that they're selling, either as a product that you can purchase for your server or as a subscription service. And on the right side, you can see all of the software solutions that Pure Storage has that keeps this hardware running smoothly, keeps it upgraded, and generally good.
Yeah, customers love it.
Okay, Nick, tell us more about this new announcement of Pure Fusion and how that plays into possibly becoming partners with hyperscalers.
Yeah, so Pure Fusion actually has been around, but there's a new updated version of it that's out that increases the ability to automate the storage of data. So removing some of the manual work that has to happen between developers, is just information that's being cranked out during the development process of the cloud and of software in general, and business managers that have to figure out how to archive this stuff. If you can pair your very high performant hardware with software that automates that work, well, that's a win win, especially if you're a hyperscaler like Azure or AWS or Google Cloud, dealing with, I don't think we need to throw out how many petabytes and terabytes and whatnot, zettabytes are going to be created and need to be stored. It's just a lot of data and it needs to be automated. And in addition to that, there have been a couple of announcements where Pure Storage has been working with none other than NVIDIA to make some of these storage systems purpose built for AI. And again, when we say AI and you hear most people throw this word around now, what they're actually saying is accelerated computing. So now there's more data moving around a data center. You need to make sure that there's no bottleneck from that data being pulled out of storage as it heads to the AI or accelerator system. And so Pure Storage has been working on developing purpose-built storage systems that pair nicely with NVIDIA's DGX and later on some of their newer systems as Blackwell starts rolling out. We expect to see some announcements eventually around that as well. Pure Storage is an elite NVIDIA partner network member. So here's where we get into some of the problems that we had with the stock in July, or I should say Kasey had with the stock in July. It seemed like maybe the market was getting a bit ahead of itself. Why is that the case, Kasey?
You may have heard us say that cloud and enterprise has been in a downturn. It has stabilized and it appears to be coming back. However, it's just at the start of a new growth cycle. So, Pure Storage being in a downturn in this cloud and enterprise section, obviously, would have some impact on growth. However, Pure Storage might be getting into this AI infrastructure portion, which of course is in max growth already.
I think everyone would like to hear you talk about that a little bit more. You put this together earlier this year. These are some comments from CEO Charlie Giancarlo talking about some of the challenges Pure Storage has to solve first before they can land some big deals with some of these hyperscalers like AWS and Azure and so on.
Currently, hyperscalers are spending a lot of their capex on getting those AI systems, those logic chips, accelerated computing. But shifting to flash storage from the traditional hard disk drive will make sense. As Giancarlo mentioned, he said that this direct flash that Pure Storage provides reduces the power, space, and cooling requirements for a hyperscale data storage, which all of those things, power, space, and cooling, are very important, especially with these new accelerated computing devices. Second, Pure reduces the need for sophisticated caching and other technologies that hyperscalers are making for the relatively low performance of hard disk drives. Pure's technology also improves server performance by accelerating that data delivery. And he lastly mentioned that the technology from Pure Storage significantly improves the reliability and longevity of their storage, which reduces the costs. So the question is, can Pure Storage crack this code to get in with the hyperscalers?
It sounds like a slam dunk. Spend the money on flash storage. What's the problem? So here's where you talked about back in July, Kasey. This is a chart that we've been keeping updated every quarter. In the middle there is the subscription revenue, which this is fantastic. You notice the pretty sharp fall off in subscription revenue growth starting in fiscal 2023. That coincides with the start of the bear market a couple of years ago. And that growth rate hasn't really picked up yet. The good news is it is still growing 24% year over year, and subscription is now half of revenue. But it seems that the problem is some of the new deals that Pure Storage had been expecting on the subscription side have just continued to get pushed out. And that kind of makes sense when you think about it. Hyperscalers are spending all of this CapEx on companies like NVIDIA, and they just don't have enough dollars to additionally throw the direction of Pure Storage. This will eventually change, we think. But for now, Pure did report a bit higher sales in actual product. That's when they just sell the all flash storage server directly, and a little bit lower in subscription in this most recent quarter. So a few months ago, they had expected the total contract value of their Evergreen One and Evergreen Flex, that's their subscription offerings. They had expected about 50% year over year growth. That's now been reduced, you can see here in this second slide in their most recent guidance update, to about 25% year over year growth in total contract value.
The interesting point about this, though, is if you notice between the previous guidance and this guidance, the revenue and year over year growth rate remains exactly the same, 3.1 billion expected for fiscal year 2025 at a 10.5% year over year growth rate. So what Pure Storage is lacking maybe in subscription revenue, they've made up for that in product revenue, and it's balanced out.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think the main takeaway here is while maybe the market is grumbling a bit about this growth rate, the absolute total revenue not accelerating, not picking up pace more quickly, it's worth mentioning. Remember, Pure Storage's industry is still in a downturn, or at least managing through the bottom of a downturn. 10.5% growth in a downturn is pretty good, I would say.
Okay, so that brings us to the valuation. Current stock price is around $50. Nick, tell us what your valuation notes are for this.
Well, your expectations have been spot on since you called this one of your top picks for this year. But we're basically back to where we were in April. So not much has changed in the stock price. The business has obviously grown since April. They've added about 300 million in cash and short-term investments to their balance sheet. So what we're trying to, deduce here is what is the market's expectation for growth to justify that stock price of about $50? So we do a reverse DCF, discounted cash flow. This is just one possible scenario that gets you to $50 as a fair value to pay for Pure Storage today. Free cash flow on a per share basis, growth of about 12% for the next 5 years, and then a 6% terminal growth rate thereafter. So you were not so optimistic about the stock in July when it had doubled in 2024, just in the course of a little over 6 months. Now that it's sold off back to a more reasonable level, is this a pretty easy bar for Pure Storage to clear?
Sold off back to up 40% year to date still. I mean, let's not
It's
take that
a good
away
one.
from Pure Storage. It's done very well. So, we were purchasing back in the spring when it was around this price. It's back down to that price right now. So, for me, this does seem like a very reasonable bar to clear and a good valuation for the stock. So, I think it might be something that we're going to be nibbling on a little bit going through this last quarter of the year.
And maybe just one more final note on this balance sheet, because you may be looking at this thinking, well, this is no hypergrowth tech stock. And that's true. Pure Storage is absolutely a visionary company. Its co-founder and chief technology officer still there at the business, pushing that vision forward and hoping to pioneer the world away from hard disk drives and to flash. But ultimately, this business is operated pretty conservatively, or I guess what you could say, from a kind of a newer tech stock perspective, but lots of cash on balance, minimal debt. Up to this point, they haven't really made any big, giant, splashy acquisitions. We don't really expect they will do that. They are making strategic investments in startups. They made a couple this past summer, which is interesting, not outright acquisitions, strategic investments. We kind of like this about this business because if you're looking for something with the potential to compound growth for many, many years, not just grow very, very quickly and then burn out in a couple of years, this is what you kind of want to look for. A business like this that is doing things sustainably and trying to gradually grow their business profitably. And that's kind of why we reshuffled our memory chip stock portfolio starting at the end of last year. Check the last video on Micron and Lam Research for a bit more on that. But Pure Storage is one that we've been adding to or had added to late last year and early this year. And I'm with Kasey on this one. I really like this business.
And they have the best colors. Thanks everybody for watching this episode on Pure Storage. Make sure you check out our sponsor, public.com, for that bond account. Link is in the description below. And check out our Semiconductor Insider membership, just $5 a month, gets you access to Discord and all of the benefits on there. We'll see you again very soon at Chipstock Investor.